Jurassic World's initial success was built on a calculated display of dominance. Using a 3-meter great white shark as mere bait for the Mosasaurus feeding show signaled that humanity had finally reduced the ocean's most feared hunters to simple corporate assets. But after 20 years of operation, the park faced a stagnation in ticket sales. Dinosaurs had become mundane attractions, viewed by tourists with the same casual interest as elephants in a standard zoo enclosure. The spectacle had lost its economic value. To solve this revenue crisis, the corporation engineered the Indominus Rex. This hybrid was designed specifically as a product to satisfy a public that had grown bored of natural history, resulting in an artificial monster created solely for its ability to shock and terrify an audience. Treating prehistoric life as a commodity creates an escalation problem. When nature is viewed as a financial variable, the demand for higher profits eventually forces engineers to build assets that are too dangerous to actually manage. Owen, an animal behaviorist, quickly identified a structural flaw in the project. The Indominus Rex was raised in total isolation, lacking any social interaction or biological context. This neglect resulted in a highly intelligent predator with no understanding of its place in an ecosystem, making its behavior entirely unpredictable. Management ignored these behavioral warnings, focusing instead on the data provided by genetic sequencing, the process of determining the exact order of the 4 chemical building blocks that make up an organism's DNA. They believed their thermal sensors and massive concrete walls were sufficient to contain a creature they didn't psychologically understand. Relying on technological containment to manage a sentient organism is a gamble. When a corporation prioritizes digital monitoring over biological reality, the system is only as strong as the sensors, leaving no fallback when the animal decides to stop following the rules. The Indominus bypassed monitoring by lowering body temperature, disappearing from the thermal grid to make the enclosure appear empty. It then baited staff by clawing the wall, mimicking an escape. This trick prompted operators to open the gates, giving the predator its opportunity to breach. The predator was waiting just inside the door. In the ensuing panic, it killed the ground team and escaped into the wider park, proving that concrete and steel are useless when the operator is outsmarted by the asset. The Indominus Rex rendered the park's multi-million-dollar technology useless by exploiting the very human logic used to design it. The system performed its technical duties perfectly, but it was rendered irrelevant by a superior biological intelligence. Despite the breach, management refused to trigger a full park evacuation. They prioritized the preservation of their brand and the avoidance of financial fallout over the immediate safety of 20,000 visitors. They attempted to resolve the situation with a small containment team, unaware that the hybrid possessed active camouflage. By blending into the foliage, the Indominus ambushed the squad, turning a controlled recapture mission into a slaughter. Simon Masrani, the park's owner, attempted a final act of executive intervention by piloting a gunship himself. His overconfidence led to a catastrophic crash into the park's aviary. The destruction of the aviary released hundreds of pteranodons into the resort area. This secondary breach, caused directly by management's attempt to fix the problem themselves, resulted in mass casualties across the tourist center. Choosing corporate optics over an immediate emergency response escalated a single animal escape into an island-wide disaster. Management's desire to protect the balance sheet ultimately destroyed the entire system. As the park fell into chaos, private military contractors moved in to weaponize Owen's velociraptors. They planned to use these trained animals as living weapons to track and kill the Indominus Rex in the deep jungle. This plan ignored a critical secret. The Indominus was spliced with raptor DNA. Because of this shared genetic code, the Indominus could communicate with the raptors, usurping Owen's authority and establishing a biological network that turned the defense force against the soldiers. The military squad was quickly decimated as their own biological weapons coordinated with the Indominus to hunt them down through the brush. The ultimate failure of the military intervention shows the danger of trying to control biology for warfare. When your primary defense shares the same source code as the threat, the system is essentially programmed to fail. Every human effort to contain the disaster had failed. Technology, corporate policy, and military force were all neutralized by a creature that humans had built but could not control. Owen managed to break the hybrid's control by appealing to his genuine bond with Blue, the lead raptor. This psychological connection proved more resilient than the Indominus's artificial status as an alpha, bringing the raptors back into the fight. In a final act of desperation, Claire Dearing released the park's original Tyrannosaurus rex. This 20-year-old apex predator possessed a level of raw, unengineered power that the synthetic hybrid was never designed to counter. The resulting three-way battle forced the Indominus rex toward the central lagoon. The hybrid's intelligence and genetic advantages were eventually worn down by the combined, persistent force of the island's natural predators. The conflict ended abruptly when the Mosasaurus lunged from the water, dragging the Indominus rex into the lagoon. The threat was finally neutralized not by human ingenuity, but by the very ecosystem the park tried to commodify. An engineered predator built for profit lacked the stability of the natural order. It was eventually corrected by a collaborative force of biological entities that had existed long before corporate geneticists began their work. The devastation of Jurassic World follows the documented pattern of a self-inflicted industrial disaster. It was the predictable result of treating biology as a product rather than a living system. Turning genetics into intellectual property and living creatures into quarterly assets created the exact structural weaknesses that led to the breach. The park was designed to maximize revenue, but it was never truly designed for safety. Humanity's illusion of control will always be shattered when we treat nature as a simple variable on a balance sheet. Jurassic World proves that when the ledger is balanced, nature always wins.